In this period of our business history, the pressure for cost down is relentless. When the crash within the financial system occurred in 2008, many businesses went into crisis mode. Business owners and chief executives immediately demanded a reduction in company expenditure. And for example, business travel was often severely restricted, projects and recruitment were put on hold, and suppliers were challenged to make a contribution to safeguard the business. Procurement stepped into the spotlight and missives were sent out to all suppliers to reduce prices and rates. And for the most important suppliers, conferences and meetings were held where the theme was inevitably accelerated cost reduction. And in some exceptional cases, contracts were even ripped up or at least challenged by procurement, and hasty renegotiations took place across all sectors. When organisations are under the sort of pressure a financial crisis creates, then it's almost inevitable that price pressure is going to be front and centre in negotiations. It's considered a quick win for procurement and is a tough challenge for salespeople to resist. The pressure on suppliers to deliver improving value for money has continued since then and shows no sign of letting up. So for business leaders, it's not difficult to see why procurement gets attention under those types of circumstances. There is also a general rule that underpins procurement influence, and that is its impact on the bottom line of the organisation. With this in mind, I'm going to propose to you 6 common themes that are contributing to this growth in procurement influence. Number 1, companies are buying or outsourcing more than ever. Number 2, procurement status has been elevated to many, if not all, boardrooms. Number 3, digitization is making it easier for procurement to achieve cost transparency and drive contract compliance. Number 4, procurement is a maturing profession, it's no longer a fringe activity. 5, it delivers near immediate business results, savings can go straight to the bottom line. And finally, number 6, procurement operates a standard process common across all business sectors, some even suggesting that the procurement method is almost a science. So let's look at these factors in more detail. Firstly, companies are buying or outsourcing more than ever. Multiple studies report that companies on average spend around 70% of their revenues externally with third-party suppliers of goods and services. And this compares to around 13% of staff costs. If 70% of your business is reliant on suppliers, then paying attention to this is not an option. Your company's survival may depend on it. And then there is globalization. It's also become easier for procurement to source globally. The rise of globalization and global sourcing has been relentless and has dramatically changed the landscape in which many businesses operate. 20 years ago, sourcing from distant, low-cost economies was characterized by infrequent and often delayed communications, rare visits, uncertainties over quality and delivery, and a lack of enthusiasm from internal stakeholder colleagues. But nowadays it's commonplace and accepted as normal business practice. There are increasing numbers of professional buyers who are adept in global sourcing and are ever eager to throw down a challenge to an incumbent domestic supplier. And this is also undoubtedly helped by large supplying organizations responding to this by offering global deals and solutions to customers determined to minimize costs. Secondly, the Chief Procurement Officer or CPO role is now firmly established in many organizations in recognition of procurement's increasingly strategic contribution. The function status continues to grow and these CPOs have been elevated to many boardrooms. Moreover, high-performing and highly credible procurement leaders have become CEOs in a growing number of companies. Thirdly, digitization is making it easier for procurement to achieve cost transparency and drive contract compliance. The growth of digital solutions made available to procurement leaders in recent years has enabled procurement processes to result in greater consistency of working across procurement's category managers and their teams and across the corporation as a whole. These digital solutions have made it easier to compare supplier offerings and to acquire and maintain supply market information. The amount and quality of data and insight available to today's professional buyer is far removed from the old ways of calculators and simple spreadsheets. And digitization has also made it possible for procurement to devolve to day-to-day working to stakeholders through the use of online catalogues. And this is also important when it comes to overseeing suppliers' day-to-day performance. Ultimately, this drives contract compliance, which, although sometimes resulting in choice limitations for stakeholders, is normally very good for the winning supplier as it drives up contract compliance. Fourthly, procurement is a maturing profession, no longer a fringe or merely tolerated back-office activity. And there are now many universities and business schools offering courses in procurement and supply chain management. For example, there's the growing number of MBA programs, one of which is at the University of Birmingham Business School, the first of its kind in the UK. And then there is the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, or CIPS as it's commonly known, which has done great work in helping professionalise procurement practice over many decades. Its membership continues to grow with significant further growth potential in China, the USA and Africa, and which CIPS is ideally placed to exploit. In summary, procurement has grown in influence and capability, is now a profession attracting some of the best talent available. Fifthly, procurement can also deliver near immediate business results. Savings can go straight to the bottom line. In this simple example, we see a company turning over £1 billion, pounds, dollars, euros, you choose your own currency. You can see that it is spending 70% of its revenues in the supply chain. And as mentioned earlier, staff costs represent 13%, with the remainder of their cost base other overheads. Its profit is 5% or 50 million on its 1 billion revenues, a normal, fairly large organisation. But the board and the company's shareholders demand more and better performance, and so the company begins to think more deeply about procurement. A new CPO is recruited and she agrees to a savings target of 10%, perhaps over a year or two. This target is pretty standard and achievable for most procurement organisations. If she is successful in building the right team and is diligent in implementing best practice, then in this simple example, if everything else remains unchanged, profits more than double. It's a compelling value proposition the CPO can take to the board, especially when the sales growth that would be required to double total company profits would be off the scale. It's not surprising that procurement's importance is recognised and more people are entering the profession when its business impact can be so significant. Finally, over the past 20 years, a standard method of procurement has emerged, and it's a method that's equally applicable across all business sectors. Within procurement's overarching category management process, we find common analyses such as power and leverage, value stream mapping, portfolio analysis, which underpins sourcing strategies, and supplier relationship management, or SRM, which covers the whole post-contract period where procurement aims to secure additional value from key supplier relationships. No longer can suppliers rest on their laurels after winning the contract. Performance and value improvement are a must. Some even suggest the procurement method is almost a science, and it's the method's track record and reliability in delivering value to companies that goes a long way in supporting this notion. In summary, the challenge for sales is twofold. Firstly, whether they can deeply understand procurement and its methods. The knowledge of procurement's methods amongst salespeople is often wafer thin and their prejudice against professional buyers deep. And secondly, integrating that understanding into account management, account planning, selling and negotiation. Salespeople need to make understanding procurement a core competence, as the function can no longer be bypassed or ignored. This requires a more strategic outlook, curiosity to see the customer relationship in a new way, and a commitment to engage with procurement with confidence and intention. It's what selling to procurement is all about.